better for me to is it better for me to install Teammate in the VM where I've got that environment set up?
Yeah. Yeah, that should work just fine.
Good.
You got it set up?
Yeah, almost. Sorry, my internet connection is not the fastest.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, it's done.
Okay. Um, so you should be able to open your terminal of choice and type teammate, and across the button will appear an SSH URL, and you should copy and paste that into the chat here.
Oh, it says access denied. Check your SSH keys.
Do you have could you turn on your screen share?
Yeah. Okay.
All right, so let me find the screen. So what happens if you type right now ls, excuse me, ls, and then tilde, or space tilde slash dot ssh?
tilde/.ssh.
And then enter. Okay, so we need to get you set up with some SSH keys. I think you'll need this for GitHub anyway. So I'm just going to look up the GitHub instructions. Screw your native app. SSH keygen. Okay, so all right, I'm gonna paste this in the chat just in case you can't see it through my screen very well, but we're gonna jump straight into step 2, which is to run this command called SSH keygen. Yeah, just do everything in step 2, and then we'll try the teammate thing again. It might be sufficient.
Okay. And then okay, so then this is my GitHub email that I put in here.
Sure.
Okay, so is there a particular file that I need to save the key in, or can it just be?
I can only see half your screen for some reason, by the way. It cuts off midway through the terminal, but
Is that
the
better?
place where we want it to be, I didn't know that it was going to prompt you, but we want it to be tilde slash dot ssh slash ID RSA, or ID underscore RSA. As when you look at the instructions here, the first black window, the line at the bottom, is the same file path, but we don't need to type /user /Pravina. We just can type tilde.
So I can just actually press enter there by the looks of it.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so it's created a directory. Okay.
Right.
Do I need a password for it, or?
Yeah. It won't appear on the screen when you type it, by the way.
Okay.
Yep, that should be good. So let's continue on. It looks like, I'm not quite sure about this last step on step 2, but let's do it anyway. The eval SSH agent step.
Okay. Sorry, I'm running two screens here. I think maybe that's the problem.
Mm.
Okay.
You know, while we're here, we might as well get this finished for GitHub.
Okay.
So let's just move on to step 3, which basically is to use the command line to copy onto your system clipboard what's in idrsa.pub, and then to step into GitHub and to put it in your settings.
Oh, okay. I don't have clip installed on my machine.
You know, technically, yeah, you can go ahead and install it, but we could just copy paste from your terminal. It's just, as the instructions warn, we just need to not accidentally pick up white space or something like that. So you could just do
Okay.
cat tilde slash dot ssh slash idrsa dot pub and copy it with your mouse. It's got to be a slash dot because it's that dot is meaning it's a hidden directory. A dot before the SSH.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it ID?
ID. Yep.
Okay.
And a little bit of tab completion should be working in your favor at this point. But yeah, that looks correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is what you need.
I mean, this is what GitHub needs. Yep. I'm pretty sure you want that SSH RSA part as well. Just everything there.
Okay. And then where do I need? Okay. Copy. Where do I need to put it?
So log into GitHub.
Sorry.
Open a browser and log into GitHub. If you already have oh, there you go, you got it.
Yeah.
So in the upper right, there's that cog, the wheel, the settings icon.
Yeah.
Yep. So go there, and then there's going to be stuff on the sidebar, and there's one for SSH keys.
Yeah. So then I just click add.
Add, yep. And
What
then
should I call it?
whatever the name of your VM is, because it's going to be unique to this VM.
Okay.
And then, yeah, just paste your key in there.
Okay. And it needs my email address as well, right?
I think this is okay, everything you have there. I'm not 100% sure. We'll see. We get to test it right after we do this. So save or whatever that button says. Add key.
Yeah.
Um, and then once you finish with GitHub, I think it's going to ask you to confirm or something. But once you're done with that, we go back to the command line and test it. Okay, no, it looks like you're ready. So on the command line, type SSH dash capital T GitHub or git at github.com.
Git at github.com.
Mm-hmm.
Are you sure you want to continue connecting?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. GitHub does not provide shell access. What does that
Right.
mean?
Well, that's saying that you can't really SSH into GitHub, but it has confirmed
Okay.
that your SSH key works and everything like that. So let's try teammate. So
Okay.
let's type teammate and let's see what happens. Oh, you're already in a tmux session. Hit exit or type exit.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yeah, let's just go with teammate.
okay, cool.
Yep. Now, if you copy and paste that into the chat, I can join you in that terminal.
Okay, wait, hold on. I need to make this work.
Oh, are you not able to copy paste?
Yeah.
Okay,
I didn't
there's
set that
a
up with it.
setting
Yeah.
up there that you can change.
Okay, I did that. Let me just can I go out of this and go back into it again?
Yeah,
Because it's disappeared on me.
yeah,
So does it generate a random SSH key each time I do this?
yep.
Okay. No, it's not working for me for some reason.
Right.
Can I maybe
You
just email this
can
to you?
email it to your, yeah.
Yeah. Your email address, John?
It's JOHNNYMO87
Yeah.
@gmail.com.
JOHNNYMO.
87 @gmail.com.
Okay.
You got, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Let's see if this works. Great.
Okay. Yes. Good.
I might as well not be full screen here. Okay. So where is your directory? Oh, I see you have a local support directory here. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. And you got everything set up for the files. Let's see how RVM is doing. Okay. And cat.rvmc. Okay. So if we file real quick. Oh, we don't have Vim?
I haven't got Vim. I've got VI though. I've
Mm.
been meaning to install Vim on this. I only set this up a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm. All right, so yeah, we're using Ruby 2.0 here. So let me check what's in my RVMRC real quick. Yeah. All right. So let's look at gem set list. Okay, so all right, it's not necessary that you create a gem set for each project if this is the only project you ever plan to have using this. You see how if I do RVM list, it shows you that you have two different installations of Ruby. And so if this is the only project that ever uses 2.0, you don't need to create a special, space inside
Okay.
2.0 just for local support. But I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
And so now if we do RVM gem set list, oops, RVM gem set list, you'll see we have that available.
Yeah.
Now I'm just going to set up a one-liner in a file so that when we step out and step in, by default, it didn't pick it up. Let's look at, and let's look at RVM list. Wonder if it bumped us out of 2.0. wonder if I need to be more exact. I don't think so. But, oh, it doesn't have the setting. So it's -P598. Don't think I need to do this though. But I'm expecting this file to wake up and prompt me when I step in here. It's not doing that, unfortunately. So I'm going to manually type rvm gemset use local support, but because this setting isn't working, the problem is you could step into this directory and not have this gem file loaded.
Yeah.
Which could be a sort of nasty surprise if you want to start working and all of a sudden none of your gems are there and you have to like manually type a few RVM commands. So it's definitely something that we need to work out soon, but I guess we'll let it go for now.
Just let me know if there's anything I need to do or install or anything like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, we're now going to have to wait quite a long time while all these gems install. Because they were installed under 2.15, which isn't going to work for this project. As of right now, we're in 2.00. But just a sanity check, RVM gemset list, it should be pointing at local support now.
Yeah.
So just have to kick off bundle install, which isn't going to succeed the first time. It's probably going to get stuck on PG, but it's got to get a good bit done. While we do this, though, we can still explore the project. So,
yeah.
So I just used a teammate is this and tmux is a way to multiplex your windows. So you see across the bottom the green bar where it says 0 bundle 1 bash. I have like a different keyboard setup than the default, but right now the default to start talking to tmux you hit Control B, and then the commands that you should know about here are N and P for next and previous. So I'll do it right now. So I'm going to do Control B next. Control B next. You see it just loops, and previous goes in the opposite direction. Or you can manually type what number you want to go to. So you could type Control B 0, Control B 1, if you want to give it a try right now.
Yeah. So Control the previous goes to the
Right.
Yeah. Cool.
Yep. I mean, you don't have to use this tool, but it's just I do a lot of work in the terminal. Yeah. Okay, so Vi is pretty bare bones, but I guess we could use it. Sort of hard if we don't have a directory structure to look at. Do we have tree, out of curiosity?
I don't think I have tree installed yet.
Okay.
Okay, so those are two things I'm going to get. So,
okay, how about we just switch to my terminal? We can leave this terminal here, but I'll do the same and open up a teammate session and share it to you so that we can be stepping around inside my browser or inside my Vim. So I'm going to fire up teammate. And I'm just going to email it to you because we're going to have the same problems where you won't be able to. Where did my email go? Okay. Sent it.
Nope, haven't received anything yet. And then all I need to do with this is to just copy it and paste it into the terminal.
Yes, but you need to do it in a terminal that isn't currently running tmate/tmux.
Yeah.
So either open a new terminal or hit whatever the binding is on Ubuntu to open a new tab on your terminal. It might be Control T.
It's Control Alt T.
Control Alt T.
Yeah.
If you're about to open it inside a place that already has tmux, it'll warn you and say you probably don't want to do this. And it's true. I've done it once by accident, and it does something weird that looks scary, although it's not actually dangerous. It's just hard to back out of.
Okay. So I type tmate and then?
You don't actually need to type tmate. You just copy paste the SSH, everything, the exact text that was in the email.
Okay.
Great. Okay. So let's just check out develop or not cd git fetch upstream. By the way, now that you have your SSH key on GitHub, you can set up with your origin. Right now my origin is git@github.com. This makes it a lot easier because I don't have to type my username and password every time. Just remind me to get you set up on that soon.
Okay.
Okay. So git pull upstream develop to make sure I have the latest changes. I do. All right, so let's take a look at the project. So I'm not exactly sure where to start. Is there anything that you want to look at in particular?
Well, at the beginning, I guess.
Right. Okay. Well, I guess it's always good to begin with tests.
Yeah.
So we have a pretty extensive Cucumber test suite on this project. This once a week, Sam meets with the person that this project is for, Rachel.
Yeah.
At least I believe he still does that. He's recently got promoted at work and maybe he has more responsibility. I don't know what his schedule's like nowadays. But either way, we still have regular customer meetings at some point where the stuff we've done, we demo to the customer, she approves or rejects it, and then she requests things, and basically we try to translate those requests into Cucumber.
Okay.
You know, we never show her the Cucumber language and say, "Does this sound good?" Because that's a little bit silly. Because you know, Cucumber.
It would confuse her.
Yeah, I mean, it's written in plain English, but you know, we still write it in somewhat funny English because it's you know gonna be compiled into code and stuff like that. Yeah. Okay. So here you see that it ran a total of 1,500 steps in so many different little, like this right here, what's left on my screen is an example of a full Cucumber file that you would find in its, you know, own file. It wouldn't be shared with other files. Each Cucumber file lists at the top feature, like the class talked about, background, and then some scenario blocks with steps inside of them, and they all like map to some other file. And we will take a look at those, but while we're still here on the command line, let's just run rspec. This is rspec 2, but Michael and I just finished a pull request to upgrade us to rspec 3. which I'm excited about. It's not like a world of difference between 2 and 3, but there are some changes that are nice, such as telling you when you are stubbing a method on an object that doesn't define that method, so that you can't like do weird things in your test that, I don't know, there's a lot of like RSpec 3 I feel like has learned from how people were using RSpec 2 the wrong way and done things to prevent that. So there's just some like nice to have things in RSpec 3. But we'll definitely go over what these tests look like in the code. And we have the printout printing fairly useful statements of what the test is about. And we do have a tiny bit of JavaScript in this project, not very much. And on that we do have some Jasmine tests. And there's 2 ways that you can view Jasmine tests. You can view them in the browser, or you can view them in a terminal. I just did the terminal version, but just to really quickly show you what it looks like in the browser, you run rake jasmine without the :CI, and it opens up something on localhost 8888, and you'll have to look at my screen to see this, of course.
Could I run localhost 8080 on mine as well, or?
Yeah, you could. Obviously, it would have to be on your terminal and not mine, but yeah, you could fire that up, and this is what and this is what it looks like when you have a bunch of passing tests. Honestly, when these tests fail, they don't provide very useful messages. Like RSpec and Cucumber, they provide very useful stack traces that you can use to figure out exactly what caused the test to fail. This is harder, in my opinion. But if you open up, like, I know you probably don't have Chrome on your box, but you have Firefox,
I will.
and
Yeah.
they're pretty similar. But either way, if you open your like developer terminal, you should be able to, at certain points, like have a better feeling for where things are failing, because like for instance, Chrome has this setting where you can pause on all caught exceptions, and there's always a few exceptions that are just not real. But if you had a failing test, you would eventually catch a debugger right at that point and look at what was wrong.
Yeah.
Or something like that. All right, but we won't go too much further into this because most likely you won't be doing JavaScript on this project anyway. So I'm going to kill that. Localhost 8080, 8888. All right, so let's look at what some Cucumber tests look like. So this is an example right here. Like I was saying, we start with feature line. By the way, does the color scheme look really ugly for you? I've had that complaint. A lot of people have a hard time using my Vim because I have this like extra color scheme added that other people don't get. Let me look at your screen.
It's okay. Mine is the default at the moment. So yeah, this is different, but it works.
Is it legible?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So this background setup is, as you can imagine, everything that sort of needs to be set up in the database before the scenarios make any sense. This is like a scenario block. You know, this is one test right here. And sometimes we have these tags above, which we have set up in another file to mean extra things. In this case, the @JavaScript tag opens up a browser that like waits for JavaScript and stuff. Let's actually run this file. So if I were to take out this JavaScript line, I wonder if it still would pass. Right. It's one of the more tricky ones because we have to wait for an AJAX request to finish. Again, there's not too much JavaScript on this site, but in Cucumber, which does test any JavaScript that's running, you know, there's certain steps that have to wait for something. Besides the JavaScript that we wrote by hand, which again, there isn't very much of it, there's also Bootstrap, which has a little bit of JavaScript involved, like when you open a menu and it like pops down. That's not JavaScript that we've written by hand, of course, but that is JavaScript that came from the Bootstrap. And sometimes that's also, you know, something that you need to put an add JavaScript tag for. Let's look at what a step definition looks like. I have wired up in my Vim a little hotkey that opens the file for me. But if you didn't have that and you had to look for it manually, basically what happens is that there's a step definitions directory. And there's all these files where somewhere in here is implemented the regex catcher that will catch given cookies are approved. There's a lot of tools and a lot of IDEs to help you find that. And I've got one set up for Vim, which opens a split right above that takes me to the step where it's defined. So I could see exactly what it's doing. And in some of these steps, we actually just alias it to another step. That's what's happening here. Let's look at some other ones. Yeah, this is actually going to be a good one to look at. So these tests are sometimes hard to understand, depending on how comfortable you are with regex. I mean, sometimes they're a little bit terse, but we have a bunch of paths saved that when I say I want to visit the sign up path, it actually calls out to what you might see in the controller where it says like redirect to new user registration path, you know, redirect to organizations path. We use that same language here.
Okay.
I'm not expecting to like understand this just by me pulling it up briefly on the screen or anything like that. You know, the way that you learn this stuff is by working on it and pairing on it, and you know, after you go through a couple iterations of developing features, things will feel a little more normal to you. The first time you see anything, it looks very bizarre. So I'm just exposing you to all of it. But that's basically it. You know, obviously all these steps are mapping somewhere, and there's a lot of Cucumber, and so there's a lot of steps that map around to a lot of things. You know, this file is 500 lines long, and there's probably a couple things in here that don't need to be here, like this, and that doesn't map to anything. All right, so all right, let's leave Cucumber for now and switch to RSpec. So RSpec just tests the backend. It doesn't fire up a browser and do all that. And so for that reason, the tests are faster. Also, there's a different philosophy. What we test in Cucumber, we're actually trying to test the, it's an acceptance level test that's from the perspective of the user, what they want the site to behave like. Whereas the RSpec tests are more written for like a coder to understand, and less for a business person to understand, right? So let's look at some model specs. This is probably our biggest model directory, because if there's a God object in our system, it's our organization model, which we'll look at in a moment. But have you seen RSpec before?
Yes.
Okay, so it's RSpec with, describe, it, before, let, all that nonsense. We have it. So you can see all these different, these are all its. And we start breaking out, like this is 180 lines of just how our CSV import works, for example. Yeah, there's plenty of RSpec to be had. So let's just look. Let me look at how we're doing on that bundle install. Okay, it's still going.
Okay.
All right, so back to my terminal. Let's look at some stuff in the app directory. So, like I said, if there's a God object in our system, it's the organization.rb. And I plan to take part of this logic out in the near future. We're doing a lot of upgrades to the code in general. So let's see. There's logic in here about geocoding. When you run the seed file, it's going to create a bunch of organizations for you, and then it's going to try to call out to Google Maps and geocode latitude and longitude on all of them. And there's logic that we have in the system around whether or not, like, once that's all done, if you go and edit an organization and then save it, if it needs to re-geocode. So where's the actual proc? This code is about to go away. We're changing the way that we're doing our map and our geocoding. We're splitting it into 2 gems, and the pull requests hopefully will be merged in this week. But it's the same idea. There's a hook somewhere that decides whether or not to run geocode based on what we've defined in a method. So that's one example of what we have inside this model. Here's another example. Honestly, it's good not to have too much logic hooked into callbacks, because callbacks are hard to test and hard to reason about and can be surprising. But we have a few callbacks where stuff happens. Run geocode is one of them. I think I'll just breeze through the file. There's a lot of stuff that, honestly, I've never approached a code base like trying to read through all the files and understand everything.
Yeah.
It's all gibberish until you start working with it. Normally the entry point I look at, like when I'm doing a feature, is I look at the controller, and like if I'm building a new page or something like that, I first set it up in the controller and the view. And if I need to, I write a bunch of logic in the controller. And then once I have it working, I pull that logic out into the model or do whatever else is necessary. So, this is the organization controller for the controller for organizations. So again, there's a lot of activity in here. A lot of our other controllers are much leaner. You know, this is a lean controller where index just grabs pages and sets it to an instance variable, which the view will get, right? So some of our lighter controllers look like this, but our heaviest controller, the one for the heaviest model, it's got a lot more logic in it. Stuff for searching. We also have this relationship between organizations and categories that are many-to-many, and so there's a little bit of logic to handle joins on that. You know what? It would be good actually if I show you instead how I develop, because I work at a code base at work that's like 10 times the size of this code base, and there's just, all right, I want this to run. Oh, I need to turn off my other Rails server, which is here. So a trick that someone taught me is to, if you're like on a page and there's something that you want to change about the page, you first fire up your server, and let's now actually like go out to the, let's just go localhost 3000. Okay, so let's say that you wanted to change the color of this delete button from red to blue, but you have no idea where in the code base any of this logic is. So we get ourselves to the page. Now I'm going to switch back to my terminal. There's a whole bunch of crap in the terminal, but what I can do right now is just hit enter a bunch of times and create like a bunch of white space. Now I'm going to just refresh the page, let it reload everything, go back to my terminal, and then I start scrolling up. And I can see, okay, it's telling me here that I hit the organizations controller show method, and it's also telling me all these what didn't it give me what I wanted? Oh, I guess it's case sensitive. It's also telling me about all these rendered lines here are the views that the controller eventually delegated to. So we know that one of these views has the HTML, and we also know what controller it came from, right up here where it says organizations controller show.
Yeah.
So like if you were to start just like reverse engineering things, which is honestly the only way that you learn someone else's code is by sort of like reverse engineering it. This is the way I usually approach. You find what you want on the actual page, and then you create that space and hit it again and see what the Rails server tells you about what came out when you refresh the page.
Okay.
And then you can just sort of start tracing it from there. So, for example, we see that we hit the show method, which has a ton of instance variables that are getting set up. So we know that the show method will delegate to a view called show. So let's go to that view and see what there is to see. It looks like there's a lot of logic, not a lot of logic, hopefully not too much logic in the view, but there's some HTML, and there's definitely a lot of uses of those instance variables that we set up. You see those being accessed all over the place, mainly for links, a link to this, a link to that. By the way, here's a button. And if we wanted to change the color, it actually happens to be related to this class right here.
Yeah.
And these classes are, go ahead.
That's out of Bootstrap, right?
Exactly. Yep. So Perhaps it's a mistake that we depend so heavily on Bootstrap. But on the other hand, none of us are professional front-end CSS developers, and I just find CSS a pain in general. So if there's a framework that does 80% of the work for me, I'm happy to use it. But it is a dependency that has held us back because we are currently stuck on Bootstrap 2, and to upgrade to Bootstrap 3, we would need to rewrite a lot of these little lines right here. That's maybe something that I'm going to tackle soon. Because the appropriate way to use Bootstrap, people will tell you, is that you don't inject the real Bootstrap words directly into your HTML. That instead, you have CSS files which translate the Bootstrap language into your own custom language. And so that way, if you were to then upgrade to Bootstrap 3 and 4, and they change their custom language, you just need to go change it in your CSS file, not all across the site.
Yeah.
So that's sort of a problem we have. It's not a huge problem. But here's an example of where a view delegates to another view. Right here at the bottom, it's telling you, besides the fact that you've hit this show, it's also going to render another partial. So let's look at that map script. And we have this setup changing right now. It was one of the things that I was working on with Michael these past couple weeks. But either way, we're using a library to talk to Google Maps. And we have certain places in our code where we have to do certain pieces of setup. And that setup is required on multiple screens. So right now, I'm on the organization show, but there's also a map on organization index, and there's also a map on organization edit. And then we have another resource that's very much like organizations called volunteer opportunities, and it also has an index, show, and edit that also have a map. So anyway, that's 6 places that we need this exact same logic. So we've extracted it to a partial, and then all the templates that need that map just render this partial. And this locals thing passes in just the right information for that page.
Okay.
So that's an example of how templates are sort of spread out and shared. You'll see this on some of our pages, content for. This is just a pretty standard Rails server-side view idiom. Basically, you'll have various points in the template that have these blocks that say content for and then some string. And then this right here is when it looks in the actual page, it's just a JavaScript source tag.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we don't have this in the absolute top header file. We only have certain pages asking for this. So to show you what happens with this content for, we need to find the place that calls yield, because yield is a thing that picks up the content for. So let's see if we can find yield scripts. And here it is. It so happens to be the absolute top header file. Like, you know, we're in application.html. It's the master file where everything is like branching from. And we have this yield scripts thing. So that's one example of content for and yield. Basically what's happening here is that partial is saying on this page, because we have a map, we want extra JavaScript loaded. And so it sends this message all the way up to the top. Or the top is waiting for any template that comes up through its application to yield some script symbol to it. And if it finds it, it will actually like put it in the header here. Like I said, we don't have too much JavaScript, but if something said content for scripts, and then it said JavaScript tag, this is my org, it's basically making sure that this JavaScript gets loaded, which is...
John, just in case I lose, just in case I lose internet connection, just give me a minute or two, and I'll come back in, right? Just in
Okay.
case, because it's given me a warning that my internet connection is spotty. So yeah.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. No problem.
Yeah. Just a warning.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's one, I think only one last thing that we really should go over, which is our services directory. You don't see a services directory in all Rails projects. Some people call it lib instead of services. Some people have, besides a lib directory here, some people have a lib directory inside of app.
Okay.
It's a similar idea. It's basically we have logic that isn't a database object, so it shouldn't be a model, right? And honestly, we have some things in here that shouldn't be in here, but for the most part, everything in here is a database active record object, but everything in here is not. So we have a controller and a view and all that stuff that is the first part. Let's go to the second part. We have a controller that needs to do a batch invite, but we don't have like a batch invite model. Instead, we just have a batch invite service. So let's just take a look at what that would be. So the batch, so this is intentionally a very dry controller action because all the logic has been extracted out into the batch invite job object, service object. Are you still with me?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, I wasn't sure if you dropped or something. But it passes in the controller's params, and it passes in the controller's current user object. And then, so it's batch job.new, those two arguments, and then it calls run, and it calls to JSON. So let's take a look at what's inside batch job. We call new. Like I said, it takes these two arguments. And it looks like it does some extraction from the params. And then there's one main method, run. And it does two things, which hopefully are clear, sort of clear if you study them by the way they were named. Tell device if okay to resend invitations. Let's see what that is. Oh, it's not going to be crystal clear unless you have dug into all the layers of it, but basically it looks like sometimes we send invitations again and sometimes we don't. Yeah. So there's some flag for that. And then there's another method called invite users and collate results. And by the way, that's all there is. There's the main method run, and then there's two submethods. And those two submethods might start doing weirder and weirder things, but we've written this private line here for a reason, which is basically trying to communicate to new developers such as yourself that, look, if you're coming in here scratching your head, there's really two things that this object does. It sets a flag of whether or not it's okay to resend invitations, and then it sends invitations and tries to collect the results in some way that's useful. So if that's all you need to know about this object, you can just read the main method and say, okay, those other things are private, but they must do things that I expect them to do, or that the system expects them to do. So if you're not really like needing to dig into this logic, hopefully written in a way where you can come in, glance at it, and leave, you know?
Yeah.
But just to dig into it a little bit, the invite uses and collate results starts parsing the data, where, let's see, invites comes from up here, something that comes out the params. Oh, by the way, we have tests on this. So sometimes the easiest way to figure out what the heck is happening at a certain point is to go ahead and set yourself a debugger in here. And then to run the tests and catch your debugger. And of course, it's just passing in fake data for the test, but it will give you an idea of what's happening here. So, wasn't there? Okay, so this is an example of example structure, some of the data that's flowing through here. It looks like a hash, key value pairs, some number, and an email. Okay. But things like this can sort of get you to a deeper level of understanding if you're confused. Like, you can catch your debugger by running the application, but sometimes you can't run the application, or it's a pain to figure out how to run the application at this point and catch debugger. So hopefully you've written tests that do the same thing. Now I just opened up my RSpec tests, but you should also be able to catch cucumber tests in here too. So if you're really puzzling over a piece of code, you're not catching your debugger by doing it in the browser, try catching it with the test suite. But anyway, so this method just does a bunch of weird things where it calls, it takes a hash, it maps that hash into an array of arrays, and then converts it back into a hash. That's a pretty common pattern in Ruby. If you have a hash with key value pairs and you want to return a new hash that does something with the keys and does something with the values, you can just map that hash. When you have a hash and you call map on it, it gives you the key and the value, which are these two things here. And then if you put that in an array of 2 elements, it'll become an array of arrays. And then if you have an array of arrays and all those inner arrays are 2 elements, you can convert it right back into a hash. Again, this is a private method, so that level of detail shouldn't be something that you have to worry about. But that's an example of what might happen in a service. Curious if there's anything else that's interesting. This service, Sam writes about it in his articles on agileventures.org. I was just beginning to read one of them while we were getting you set up. A similar idea, and I'm not going to dig into it, but also if you're just looking for a piece of code, it's good to get very comfortable with searching the entire application for a reference. So, I mean, that depends on what IDE you're comfortable with. Obviously, I'm a Vim user, so I've got my own way of doing things where I want to see where in the world is user orientation claimer used, and that was actually very discouraging. It seemed to only come up with the place it was defined. Let's try that again. Okay, I had a white space in there that was messing it up. But now I've got this search mode going where I can see that user organization claimer is used in 5 different places, or 6 different places. 3 of them are specs, so I'll ignore the specs. 1 of them is a service where it's defined, and then 2 of them are controller actions. I could say, okay, so it's used over in this controller, and it's also used over in this controller. You know, so again, I'm just sort of showing you strategies of how you can start to like reverse engineer things. Like if you find something, search the entire app for it and see what else you can find. And again, hopefully you're pairing with people that already know more of the app, such as me or Marion or Michael, or there's also David Corking and Sam and Ralph, or Raphael. So there's other people that you can definitely pair with and learn more. But there's strategies that are like personal to your style that you'll develop for when you're dropped in the deep end of a pool, how you're going to learn how to swim. You know, it's always going to be a little bit like that. You know, hopefully we've like built this thing in a way that it is only a few steps before you start to understand. Hopefully. But if you find something confusing, besides getting help on it from the rest of us, it's also an indication that perhaps we should make it more clear and change the code. So it's not necessarily your fault if you find something difficult to understand. But that's basically it. I mean, let's see how this installation is going for you. Okay, it looks like it's done. All right, so Control B, left square bracket, should allow me to start scrolling up. So it looks like everything installed. I actually expected it to fail on Postgres. But it didn't.
I had a little bit of an issue trying to install Postgres when I did the bundle, so I think I installed whatever dependencies it needed or anything like that. So yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's see how far we can get in this installation. Because I think you have to go in half an hour, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'll post this in the chat. You may have already discovered it yourself, but the GitHub repo lists installation notes, and
Yeah.
they're really good. I've referred to them when working on other projects because they're sort of like general how to set up a Rails project. I mean, they're specific for this project, but the advice is good for any Rails project on Ubuntu or Mac OS X.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just try some of these DB setup commands. So I'm looking at step 10 of the installation notes, where it's still, and let's see if it blows up if we start trying to set up a database.
I tried running these. I'm not sure if it worked out correctly.
Well, it says that it already exists,
Yeah.
so let's leave that there and see if we need to migrate. Do you recall how far you got in these lists of break tasks?
I did them all. Like I said, I'm not sure if it all worked out exactly correctly, but it seemed to.
Okay. Well, instead of running them again,
I wasn't sure where it didn't give a message if it had done it correctly or not.
right. So I just opened up Rails console, at Rails C, or short for Rails console. And let's take a look at organization.count. Okay, you've got 642. That is the number that we expect you to get from the C data. Where latitude, nil. Okay, it looks like you basically got all of them to geocode. Geocoding is difficult in the develop environment because we don't throttle the rate at which we hit the Google API, but the Google API throttles us. So you could set it up 3 times, and the third time it will refuse to geocode any of them because Google is sick of your IP address. So you have to sort of like sometimes do it in batches and stuff like that. But usually the first run is good before Google starts trying to throttle you. And it looks like you basically got through. We could try to get these last 4 geocoded, but I can't even remember. It might be that these last 4 don't have valid geocodes. But right now I'm just taking the 4 that are nil and doing o.save on them. By the way, can be written more succinctly. And it's gonna interesting. I don't know if you saw that as it went by, but we actually see a little response from Gmaps saying the address you passed seems invalid. So I have no results, which I believe is correct. There's a couple pieces of dirty data in the seed file. So everything looks okay. The ones that are able to geocode did. The last break task is the one that loads the emails. So let's see. How many are missing emails? I'm going to compare that to my database real quickly. I'm just going to run the same query in my email mail.count. Oh, I have a lot more now. So anyway, looks like you're good.
Okay.
Looks like you got everything set up correctly that far. Have you had a chance to open up localhost 3000?
I did. I'm not sure exactly what to do if I sort of want to make a change to the code and then see if the website itself runs correctly or yeah.
Okay. So I did Control B, C, which creates a new window. So now we have 0, 1, and 2 across here.
Yeah.
Rails S. Oh, very sad. Okay. RVM gems. This is the pain of why I was annoyed that RVMRC, this thing, not that thing, this thing, for whatever reason, isn't working for you. So every time you open a new window, it drops into the completely wrong gem file. So you need to do RVM use 2.0.0.
Yeah.
And we check if the correct gem set. The answer is no. RVM gem set use local support. I never have to type any of this stuff, and we definitely need to figure out how to get your RVMRC working. But now if we do Rails S, looks like it booted up. Do you want to try to open localhost 3000 in your window?
Yeah.
Looks like it loaded. I mean, I can't see your screen, but I can see what came across in your Rails server
No,
level.
it has loaded.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if that's your develop environment, you can catch debuggers in it. You know, it's ready to go. So, I mean, the next step really is just to pick a feature and start pair programming.
What happens if I break something? Do I just do another fork of the repo or
No. Okay. So the general Git workflow would be like this. Git branch. Let's see what you have for branches. Right now you're on develop.
yeah.
So you would, if you want to work on something,
Then I just create a new branch.
yep. So you go to that new branch. By the way, there is a useful thing that you can set up so that your command line here tells you what branch you're on, so you don't need to type git branch all the time. But now that you're on new branch, you can do horrible things like git rm let's not do it with git. We'll just rm-rf app, which should delete the entire app directory.
Yeah.
And then if you were to try to run the app, it would break completely. And this doesn't matter because this is git. So you could just git branch, oops, git branch, and say, you know what, I totally messed up here. Check out develop. Oh wait, sorry, you don't have that alias. Git checkout develop git branch. Oh. Okay, let's look at git status real quick. Git status. Git reset -- hard. And let's see if we have our app directory back. I don't know if we do. ls. Okay, we do.
Yeah.
So you can always reset, anything like that. But I mean, even if you messed up all your branches, let's say that all your branches somehow went absolutely crazy, you don't trust any of them, you would do, okay, git checkout -b. Let's go to some other branch where you can sort of like stand while you nuke everything else around you. And you can do git branch B and delete what's on new branch. That branch is gone. You can like repeat, you know what, we're even going to delete develop right now. We're going to re-download it just to demonstrate how you can sort of throw everything away. You'll never need to create a new fork.
Okay.
So git fetch, actually let's look at your remotes right now. So git remote add upstream. So this is one thing that we should do. We should, you have an origin which points to your repo, but we also want to point to the Agile Ventures local support repo. So by convention, we call it upstream. You can call this whatever you want, but I called it upstream. Now you see it listed under here. You can do git fetch upstream. I'm going to grab you everything that it has on that remote. But it's not going to make these branches for you. It says new branch here. If you type git branch, it hasn't actually given it to you. It's just got a copy nearby that if you wanted to make one of these branches. And there's all these different git commands to give yourself a copy of someone else's branch. I'll just show you the one I use, which isn't even the most efficient. I think Marion knows the command. But this command right here, the colon syntax is good to know in general. So the left side of the colon, if I'm doing git fetch upstream, and then I have two branch names, a colon on one branch name on the left side of the colon, one branch on the right side, it's like a from and a to. So just for an example, what this did right here, I wouldn't recommend renaming your branches different things, but just to give you an example, this is, you got yourself a new copy of develop, and you called it develop me. I'm going to delete that then. It's pretty. So this syntax, by the way, of fetch to give yourself a new branch only works if you don't have a branch already named develop. There's other techniques that, you know, when you pair program with people, you can pick up on how to get a fresh copy of a branch and stuff like that. But anyway, we are back to having develop. So let's git checkout develop, git branch, temp. So now we're back to where we were before. And this does not touch your gems. Your gems aren't checked into version control. So you can be deleting branches left and right. Your gems will only be deleted if you delete the directory.
Okay.
So you're safe to just jump around between branches like this.
Okay.
And then when you pair program with people, you want to add them as a remote as well. So like if we had time right now, you would find my fork of LocalSupport, and you would do git remote add John, and then my GitHub thing, and then if we were to continue working on the rspec3 branch, which is done, but for example, if you wanted to start pairing with me on that, you would grab a copy of it, you see that we now have that. But now, just because you're on a different branch, you might have to do new gems. We're not going to install these gems right now, but we tried to fire up a server and says, whoa, you're missing things. And that's because this branch needs different gems. And so before you do that, you would do like bundle install, and it'll install the new rspec3, it'll install a bunch of other things that we've added on this branch. But that's only for this branch. So if we go back to let's just check that we've made it there. This should start up fine. So it's specific to the branch that you're on. Yeah. And then when it comes to pair programming, you're working with somebody. We don't have like push access to each other's repos, just a standard privacy setting for Git and GitHub that I can't push code directly to your repo. So instead what happens is if we're pair programming and I just did a bunch of stuff, I would push it up to my JohnnyMo87 LocalSupport repo, and what you would do is git pull John develop. I'm not going to enter this command because I don't know what I have on my develop branch, and I don't want to pull it into yours. But you would then pull in my new changes, and you could even sanity check and make sure that the change that I just wrote, the commit I just wrote, is at the top of your git log. Obviously it's not because I haven't put anything to that branch and you didn't pull it in, but you can always just be checking your git log, make sure that the thing that your partner just wrote is what you just pulled in. And then you should be good to continue, and then when you're ready to commit, there's definitely a workflow that you'll have to get used to where you'll see what your status is. You might have different statuses of things being staged and not staged, and then you can sort of like take the things that you want to stage and stage them, but eventually, it'll come down to a commit message. And you can type it on the command line here, or there's all these other Git screens that you can use to be looking at things. But yeah, that's the brief walkthrough right now of what the workflow is like on LocalSupport.
Okay, thank you. That was so useful. I have a question with the aliases for Git. Do you guys all have a standard set of aliases that you use, or?
No, we don't. We're not standardized. Everybody has their own preferences. I'm a big fan of Vim, and so I use a fairly standard bundle of Vim stuff. I, I don't know if you're at all interested in Vim, but I'll just link.
I'm very.
Yeah, I got this working on Ubuntu, although I'm currently using a Mac. But there's some different things that you need to know. But can you see my screen right now? This is sort of amusing to me. And obviously it's because I'm logged into Google right now. But when I do GitHub and then the name of the repo I'm looking for, the first thing that comes up is the repo. And then the second thing that comes up is an article that Brian wrote on agileventures.org of exactly what you need to do to get that repo to work for Ubuntu 12.04.
Okay.
So there's a couple extra like fonts that you need to install. Otherwise, it looks really janky. But it's this repo right here, which is a massive bundle. And some people would argue that it's too much, that it gives you too much out of the box. You don't like learn Vim the hard way. But sometimes it's okay to jumpstart and then one day take away all the extras and start learning it the hard way. But you know, sometimes you just need to be productive right away. And so you can download this huge bundle, which sets it up in a very intelligent way so that when you want to start modifying things, you know exactly how to modify. Your aliases are in one file, and your plugins are in another file, and so forth like that. It's a very intelligent setup.
Okay. I'll definitely check that out.
Okay. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. I learned a lot.
No problem.
Yeah.
No problem whatsoever. Obviously, our time zones are fairly different, so it's going to be hard to collaborate during the week because there's three of us that are over here in the New York time zone. But Sam Pretty is in India, and he hasn't worked on LocalSupport recently, but that's also because I think the time zone. So he might be interested to return. And then again, on the weekends, there's plenty of time to overlap.
Okay. Yeah. No, I'll definitely make myself available, especially on weekends, because then I don't have to worry about getting up too early the next morning and things. So I can join you guys if you start a bit later and stuff. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, great.
Yeah. Thanks so much, John.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
All right, well, take care.
Okay. You've still got something running in a different terminal, I think, yeah?
Yeah. So let's. So I can, I guess, if I quit my teammate, you're automatically booted. But if you ever want to leave someone else's teammate session, it's Control B, D to detach. But I can just detach us both if I teammate session, which I think I've done right there.
Yeah, yeah. It says connection to ny.teammate.io closed. So yeah, that's done.
Yep. Okay, well, I've got to go walk my dogs. You probably heard them crying in the background this entire time.
Yeah. In fact, I do agility with my little dog. So we went to a competition today, and it was raining. But these guys are crazy, so they still ran in the rain. So yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, my dogs love the rain too.
Yeah.
Really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully we'll get to meet up again soon.
Yeah. Enjoy your walk.
Yep. All right. Thank you.
All right. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.